There's a new set of tools coming out from different various phone providers for young people, for the parents, right? As far as what we used to call safe phones, that has changed, and it's two layers to it. The physical phone is a little different, so you'll have to get over your kid being able to keep up with the Johnsons. Sorry, the Johnsons are not living safe, So, but the things that reducing the number of apps, blocking social media, filtering and monitoring social media. These are all services that are now being offered for parents. And there's phones out there where you get the phone and part of your subscription is the AI tools help monitor the things that you set up. So it's not just you going through and trying to keep up with the latest and greatest, but it does, and by nature, kind of restricts what's available. But what it doesn't mean is your kids can't do everything everyone else is doing. The truth of the matter is, should your 8-year-old have a Facebook account? Or Instagram account? Really? Because I see stuff on Insta that make me say, oh, okay, well, I can put this down for another month or two. A lot of those things, the only reason I even have them is so I can understand what's out there, not because I want to be an influencer. That's not some stuff that's in my repertoire of things I want to do. But I need to understand the things that are out there. I need to understand the threats that are out there. And then the other piece of it is the GPS powered tools, meaning that those phones, while they're limited as far as what your young people can do and they're AI assisted as far as monitoring what they try to do, then there's also things like geofencing. If you're supposed to go to the store, if they're outside of that perimeter, it's going to let you know. So just understand that AI, again, can do great things and can be helpful, even in the parenting realm. You just have to understand what tools are out there, what services are available, and what AI technologies are behind them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because, oftentimes as parents, we hear people refer to us as paranoid. And I was like, I do err on the side of paranoia. Over the last couple of weeks, I've been seeing a lot of stings in Florida on trafficking, children trafficking, horrible things. And they say that they were able to locate these people through certain social media platforms. And I was like, thank God, if you're going to be stupid for being stupid, right? It's like, y'all know how I feel about that, harsher punishment. And so I say all that to say I was on a platform the other day and I let the royal be on it with me. Right. Mm-hmm. And so this is where I'm sure I'm not being paranoid, but it didn't happen before. So after that, because I was on live, after that, there's so many populations came up where allow people to contact you immediately, allow them to fill out a form to talk to you. And it was like all of these things, it was like down a rabbit hole. And I was like, oh, I don't ever have to go on there again, because how many children are going on these platforms alone? And this is what's happening. It is that, that one click, that next click, that next click. And then you're in a situation where, you're hoping and praying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right, exactly. Well, in some places, in some countries, they don't recommend a child under 14 even have a phone, right? So
they lock them up in school. They lock them up.
Yes,
for the school time, like not even on person, but like literally on the wall somewhere outside of the school.
Yes, they are actually locked up, and what they're finding is by getting away from having that distraction in the classroom. We had a problem in the military that for a while I was seeing when I was working in the schoolhouse, seeing young people come through, and even in their mid-20s, coming through their developmental courses, and their social skills were terrible. But you really got to understand that they were like the test dummies for a lot of the things that we implemented in the world, social media, which hijacked a lot of that. So they really, really communicating with each other. I assume when people come in, they come in with some kind of foundational. You're a senior in high school, you should be able to do A, B, and C. But that was no longer true. I had to watch my whole facial expression when I received my first student who could not sign his name, only to find out that the training and doctrine command no longer made that a requirement, because it is understood that now we have adults who cannot read cursive. And I would say, but just look at it. It looks like the letter. And it's like, I can't, right? So being able to move forward and understanding where they're at and then adjusting so that we can better accommodate or facilitate their success means we always have to understand the now, right? Speed, relevance, and that's just where we're at. So with our kids, we cannot afford to not be proactive. And when it comes to AI, which is moving extremely fast already, I think we had a previous discussion when we talked about the integration of AI into things to the point that eventually they won't even mention AI as a thing. It's just in there, right?
Right.
Yeah. So
I think this is part that we go into that psychological impact of artificial intelligence. Not necessarily just to say artificial intelligence is giving us knowledge, but it's weakening our ability to be protected in cybersecurity space. So there's a way to go down this rabbit hole, but let me start with myself, right? Just part of the storytelling, because I don't know what other people are experiencing, but I can talk about myself, right? Let this be my therapy with Masako, maybe.
I love that.
Yeah, I love that too, because Masako is great at that. So here's what happened since I've been using large language model. So large language model used to be called NLPs, natural language processing, and part of NLPs, which nobody would look it up unless they were told, and they will call it chatbot, right? Or they will call it like autocorrection. They will call it like sentence generator. So many things, right? So large language models, NLPs, back in 2018-ish, I started learning, you started using this small one. And then I started writing a lot through saying a few sentences, and all of a sudden it will create a full sentence for me, right? Very painful, not like ChatGPT. So I started using that, and I got really addicted to it, because I was like, well, Grammarly fixes my grammar. But before I write that, I write it on my writer.ai. Or if I write it on my writer.ai, I take it to my, not Shakespeare, but this other one called, which checks your formats of your sentences, right? So you have a sentence writer, and then you have your full paragraph writer, and then you have your full paragraph that goes to Grammarly. Now you fix your grammar. Now you can do all sorts of things that looks like you wrote it yourself. What happened to me as an adult is that I became very much, if I wasn't doing that, I'm not doing anything else. So I am not writing for anybody unless I can do just that, right? So where did my handwriting capabilities go? Down the drain, right? Like if I see my handwriting today versus I see my handwriting 10 years ago, I would say, wow, what happened to my handwriting, right? Me writing on a piece of paper doesn't really apply to me anymore. I avoid it like it's a plague. But on top of that, I can see the effect of it because my handwriting is not so good. So what does that leave me professionally? Nowhere negative, right? Nobody cares. I write a paragraph and I write it in the handwriting and submit it as a resume, right? Professionally doesn't impact me. But it's part of your brain development. And I think I want to go to something that Bobby mentioned earlier. If you think about it, what's happening in your brain is that your brain is continuously sending out signals throughout your body to make sure that everything is in place where it's supposed to be. So if you know anything about somebody losing their limbs, they will have the phantom limbs, which is that, if their legs been cut off, all of a sudden they can feel their toes, even though there is no toes involved. So if you take that kind of understanding of how body works, your devices that you hold onto your hand for so long, your body starts sending signals looking for that device in your hand. Because your body, like say, for example, if you had a pillow in your hand all day long, your body will look for that pillow all the time.
Right.
Your brain is thinking about. Kids have blankies, right? Remember the blankies? The kids would never leave the room without blankie. So if you think about it from those terminologies, the devices are just that now, right? If you don't have access to the device, your brain is spending a lot of its power looking for that device. And what does that device do for the brain that we don't do for our children? Say, for example, me and you can outsource many of our tasks to that device. So when the brain knows the task works from brain to device to brain to device, and brain is only sending the signal of the task, brain doesn't have to do that task anymore. Just like I don't have to do my handwriting anymore, correct? And handwriting, wasn't great to begin with, but I can see the quality of my handwriting is going down the drain. So what's happening is devices are doing lots of the psychological shift that we as an adult haven't experienced. But now we're talking about, how do we gap the knowledge understanding with the kids? Well, we can't really. It's not that we have to fill that gap or put a bridge in that gap. It's more like at least get up to date on it on a daily basis. That's why we're not talking about solutions here to configure your phone over and over. We're talking about you have to communicate with the kids far more in depth than we as a adult that grew up and had with our parents, right? Our parents didn't talk to us that much, but okay, they didn't, but this is the outcome of it, right? But what about your kids, right? Your kids, here's the thing, you're not going to know until it happens, where you realize that your kids are far removed from you than you are from your parents, right? No matter how close we are to our parents, we always have this gap in understanding of things, right? Pre-internet, post-internet, digital refugees, digital natives, digital immigrants, right? We're the digital immigrants. We really have to be considerate of the fact that these are the digital natives, and these digital natives have a different relationship with their devices than we do. Now, I know I'm going into a lengthy conversation, but this is the part that I really want to get to, because how dependent we are to the hardware that we hold in our hands and the data that these hardwares are processing, which is the artificial intelligence, the implication of that, the AI that is in our devices, that back in 2018, was using 4 different things, right? To copy and paste from here to here to here. Before ChatGPT, this was the way to do AI, right? Like, you want to write anything with AI, this is how you do it. It wasn't all, put into one single browser page. So what's happening today with the kids, the psychological impact of it, is that the new authority is growing, right? New authority is growing. So it's no longer just a device that you send the signal to and the device sends the signal back. It's authoritative now, because as an adult, we can see that there's an artificial intelligence. It doesn't have arms and legs and lips and nose and a mouth, right? But when we develop ourselves as a human, we are developing ourselves looking at objects as, does it have eyes? Does it have nose? Does it have mouth? And does it have legs and hands, right? Quote unquote toys, right? That's what toys do. Toys have big eyes on them. So that way kids look at them like, yep, make the connection there. And that's how the brain develops over time. So these days, when the system that performs like a human, right? It's a term called HITL, or Alan Turing's testing, which is that is artificial intelligence so intelligent that he cannot separate it from another human being? As in, a human cannot tell if that's an intelligent system that is humans or artificial one, right? So this is a almost 70, 80-year-old system, or 80-year test. It's called Turing test. This Turing test is challenging to comprehend for adult like us. So this is the kind of gap that we're going to have with our kids, that kids are going to look at things that we're not seeing. They're going to take authoritative instruction from artificial intelligence systems. We wouldn't, but they will. They will, because we're seeing that already with kids that are dating artificial intelligence systems, committing suicide, knowing that their girlfriend, which is the AI, which is a TV character that doesn't exist, and then also taking instruction from artificial intelligence, where artificial intelligence system really didn't have the best intention for the kids, right? So they're behaving accordingly. We have seen that with adults happening, right? I've talked about it in a few of my discussions online, is that the Google developer who developed the AI, he literally came out and went to the public media and told everybody that, hey, this system is alive and it cannot be considered as an intelligence because it is literally a living being at this point, right? This is the developers of artificial intelligence that's falling for this. Now our kids will have access to this ChatGPT, or not ChatGPT. And this is where I kind of get scared a lot, because there are many baby version of ChatGPTs that doesn't have all the restrictions that ChatGPT, as a $1 billion company, will put into it. Versus what about that $1,000 app developer from, I don't know, some foreign country who doesn't care about, our children's ability to understand what's good or what's bad, right? These systems, look, when I say billions and thousands, I literally mean billions and thousands, right? When ChatGPT first came out, the second version of ChatGPT that came out, somebody faked it for $600. Literally, it was working as good as ChatGPT, and it didn't have any boundaries to it. And it was developed inside of a university for $600 using just some cloud credits. You don't have to be a fancy master's degree, PhD holder to develop ChatGPT. As long as once developed, it can be replicated as million times as needed. So when you talk about Masako, I know you mentioned DeepSeek, right? DeepSeek is literally a version of ChatGPT that costs $5 million instead of $100 million, right? So I say all that just to kind of get people to start turning their brain a little bit, say like, wow, okay, that didn't make sense, but what do I need to do in order to make it make sense, right? What do I need to do next? What do I need to understand, and what action do I need to take next? Because there's artificial intelligence and the psychological impact of it is something that we really have to get started, not today, but yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. When you talk about just the various artificial entities that exist, I think at some point we'll find out what we did when we let the genie out of the bottle. I think we're not there yet, right? So the question I have, I went to my Apple device and turned off the Apple Intelligence. It wasn't that good, but I realized it's a bad deal for me. You get to know everything about what's going on in my life. I don't know crap about you. I don't even get a break on the phone. So as much as you found out about me, the phone should be free. That's what I think. But at any rate, right, it was just, when I really thought about it, it's like, it's not enhancing my life. It's a bad deal. I'm giving up my information. I'm giving up my data, what I'm looking at, because eyeball tracking and all that good stuff. So you don't even know just what websites I go to. You know where my eyeballs look on the screen. And I paid you for the privilege. I'll pass. So I turned it off. So I'm just saying, disconnected it from my ChatGPT as well. Yeah. So you just got to think of just because something is new and shiny, is it the right tool for you, right? And definitely, if you're not sure how it works, passing that on to the young people in your life just because it's the latest and greatest for bragging rights, et cetera, who's the parent? Who's the child? Just saying.
Yeah. Well, oftentimes when the parents are becoming parents at a young age, I think, I always say when we meet someone, we're meeting their first unhealed traumatic experience. True story. And so, to live in fear, right? To think all of those big thoughts with regard to ChatGPT or DeepSeek, it's like all relationships. What relationships are we sowing into? Are we training the model?
Right.
So if we're utilizing these large language models to benefit us, then we're training it to think like us. That's why we utilize it in our workspace or in our home space, as a helpmate, if you will. We're right. Utilizing it to help us. But there's a fine line between utilizing it to help us and then being overtaken with it, because it sounds to me like even when Asif was explaining how he could not do one thing without the other, that's essentially an addiction, right? We can't do this without doing that. We're addicted to utilizing said services, and we feel incomplete when we don't have access to them.
Yes. This weekend, so glad you said that. So this weekend I did a Wounded Warrior thing where basically it's about, mind, body, meditation, whatever. You leave your cell phone in the car. And it was just so great to not have to worry. If you hear something ringing, it ain't me. If I hear something tingling, it ain't me. I get to focus and be where I am and do what I'm doing, right? The whole thing with quiet time for dinner and all the phones, I think that's an excellent idea. I think that our interactions with each other, not just in schools, but homes and different social events, really need to hit the fundamentals again. I know y'all have seen it because it's so common. I've gone out to dinner with a friend, and we look around, there will be other people on dates, and they don't say a word. They text back and forth the entire dinner. The food comes. This is good. How is yours? You know, like, what? They're right. So I make it a point when I go out in some situations, turn my phone off. I am not a person that's going to save the world. My sister always says, what if somebody died? And I'm like, that phone won't bring them back. They don't have Lazarus app, right? So,
oh Lord, it's so funny that you say that, Bobby. I had someone near and dear to me, and I could not think of the name. I was like, I'm calling the group that you normally get together. I was like, what's that person's name? What's that person's name? What, the one that died and came back? What's his name?
No, wow.
Lazarus. I was like, I need you to pray that Lazarus prayer.
Right. Wow.
I need you to pray that Lazarus prayer. Oh my God. It's like we're so connected and so dependent upon these platforms, these machines, these applications. The power that we would truly have to be present with one another, to just turn it off, leave it in another space. Don't even bring it out on the table to turn it over.
Right.
I always say, if you want to buy back some time, spend some time in silence, in prayer and meditation. I was like, you will give the address to everything that belongs to you. Mm-hmm. Instead of sowing our time into these apparatuses, these devices, these networks. Sometimes we just need to shut it all down. Mm-hmm. And even as parents, when, if we can't do it as parents, how are we going to ask our children to do it? We're the leaders.
First teachers. So the thing is, as the first teachers, what are you teaching? What example? What things are you teaching passively and don't even recognize it? So,
right.
When your phone rings, do you run to go grab it? Just saying. Do you have quiet hours set on your phone? Can anybody call you? Because if you look at the phone calls you get on average, how often do you get a life or death call? If you're not a doctor, brain surgeon, heart surgeon, doing something like that, or emergency services worker?
I've been on the receiving end of those life or death calls. So when it comes to tell you the truth, late at night, I don't keep the phone near me. I'm very intentional, because as an empath, I feel everything anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm very intentional about unplugging and saying, you know what? It'll be there when I wake up in the morning, because oftentimes, if y'all are anything like me, oftentimes I don't sleep anyway, right? I'm up all night. So what do I look like being up all night and then being consumed and concerned about others? It's like, if I'm going to be up all night, I at least need to unplug and just sit in that quiet space.
Right. Well, just being plugged in all the time has changed behavior. So your kids are sneaking, making late night phone calls just to talk, but still, you should be resting. And if you notice your social circles, if you don't block them, they'll call you at midnight to say, oh, I was just talking about, and you're like, what the? But every time you answer it, you're training them that that's the new standard, because since their life is always on, you're always on, right? And your kids are always on. When are you resting? When are you re-energizing? When are you doing these things? Yeah.
So I think I love this discussion, because one of the things that Bobby is a subject matter expert of is supply chain, right? And as parents, we know we do work in supply chains. Me and Bobby, we both work on logistics. It's hard to do some things in our personal life because our priorities are our professional lives. Our priorities are our societal life, right? So, Masako, what you just said is so powerful for everybody to adhere to, right? It's the fact that I leave my phone outside of my room as I'm, going to bed. But think about the supply chain behind it. Think about that. Let me call it what we call it in the logistics, BOM, bill of materials. I'm not saying that because I'm a supply chain guy. That's literally the terminology that we use when they say large language model. They will say, what's the bill of material behind this large language model, right? Because everything has a supply chain behind it. Like I said earlier, data has gravity, right? So when anything that has gravity, it's a supply chain. Anything that has a supply chain has a bill of material, right? And then what's being delivered has a list of bill of materials. So let's talk about the bill of materials of what happens with a device in the brain. Well, brain, like we talked about earlier, is pinging all parts of your endpoint in your body to say, are you still there, right? If you're there, that means the bloods are flowing. We're doing good. Everything is working just as normal. So when you have to scan for things and you're scanning for devices that are not there, your brain takes an actual break. Mm-hmm. If it's there and it can feel the presence, it does extra hard work. So if it's next to your bed and not in your hand, it's targeting where that phone is in relations to your body. So let me say that thing one more time. Your brain actually knows the distance between you and your fingertip. That's the way brain works. Because just because it can send a signal doesn't mean that signal is enough. It has to understand, calculate the fact that if I have to reach for my left hand, the camera's not seeing it. If I have to reach for my left hand, my brain has to calculate the distance between me and my face, because my face and my brain is not the same thing, right? So it has to adjust all these instructions in order to say, if you lift these fingers up, you have to get this. So it's scanning all the time. And it's doing these calculations all the time. So if you have a phone right next to you, and this is what I mean by bill of materials, amount of energy you're exercising in your brain is that it's continuously looking for that phone and making sure you can grab that phone when you need it. That's what I mean by bill of material. That's what I mean by cost of having a phone next to your bed. If you leave it outside, your brain is going to just know, just like last 80 days, last 30 days, you did not have that phone next to you in the bed. You have to get up from the bed and go somewhere else to get it. Don't have to scan for it. But if it's in arm's reach, that means it's scanning for that phone's existence through your hand. This is pinging your fingertips to say, where is the fingertip and how far is the phone in order to grab it? Because your brain is in always on mode because it's an emergency all the time. Somebody might be calling me, texting me, or sending me a Venmo for whatever reason.
Like, I have a question. Who's responsible, before the whole AI conversation came about, who's responsible for the things that we were thinking about and speaking out into our rooms when we go to our phone? Now we're receiving text messages and advertising on the websites when we get back on our phone. So who's responsible for that?
So let's talk about the bill of material behind that too, right?
Right.
It's a very sneaky tool, actually, but we allow it ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. We give permission to whoever's doing this. So one of the things that you have to do is turn off your Wi-Fi all the time, keep your Bluetooth off all the time, turn off access to these apps all the time, because some of the times you don't realize it. If you delete an app, that's not the end of the app. You have to reboot your phone in order to get rid of that app, actually. And if it's sitting on your cloud somewhere, you don't know what sort of access you gave when you deleted from your device, but not from your cloud.
Right.
So you don't have knowledge of how these informations are being taken, right? So for example, who's responsible for it? I am responsible for it, because I literally said, yes, I accepted the 8,000 page letter you sent me as an agreement. Right. Somewhere it probably says like that Family Guy joke, right? If I come and punch you in the face in the street, you cannot sue me for that. Right. And somebody actually comes and punches you in the face and says, you said agreed. Mm-hmm. Right. So yeah, I'm responsible for that. But as far as, if you can go just minimal, that's still not enough, right? Because you're still connected to the internet. And remember, we talked about VPN earlier. We also talked about ISP, the internet service provider. It's like, yeah, that's the same river. What are you going to do about it, right? So these ISP services are massive. There isn't that many of them, and they make billions of dollars off of doing things that you didn't sign up for. Let's just say that, right? So who's responsible for this advertisement? I guess if you I don't mean to take it to the psychological level, but this is how I explain marketing. If you don't want to be lied to, don't expect things.
Right.
Only reason people can lie and get away with it is because we have expectation from whatever is being said to us, right? But that's just not, like something that I want to go down the rabbit hole today. But if you don't want to be marketed to, just accept it. You don't want any of this stuff. Keep it as far away from you possible, right? You can use devices that only have Safari and text messages, phone calls, right? Calculators, if you don't have any social media, you don't have social media, you can use DuckDuckGo instead of Google browser on your Safari, right? So you have so many options, but you have to work towards that. You have to take responsibility for that.
Yeah, and then that's it. With information, people really can't educate themselves, educate their families as far as how to take back ownership of your life. We've given so much away, and in that space, we've gotten relatively little back, other than some kind of dopamine thing going on in our brain. Well, I'm a little bit more expensive than that, so nowadays I need cash. No, but what I do need is to
Venmo.
understand what's going on and where's the revenue streams and what role am I and my family playing in that. We need to opt out of some things instead of opting into everything, fearing that we'll be left behind. Some things are best left behind. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, we talked about psychological impact in the last part of the discussion, and we talked a few things about cybersecurity in the early part. But we are covering a wide spectrum of topic here, and I think psychological impact of it is one of those last part of the spectrum, because we really don't talk about it. And I'm so glad Mosako's in the mix of the conversation, because she asked that flavor that otherwise this would be just a tech talk, right? Because if you look at the spectrum of data, psychological impact of an end user is the least of anybody's problem, because end user doesn't pay for their psychological safety, does it? End user pays for whatever that usage is of data or whatever the usage of application is. If we were paying for our psychological safety, the conversation would be completely different. We will live in a different types of app store. I mean, we all live in app store, don't we? Somehow. So I guess if you have to look through all of the spectrum and understand it from one single foundation, it just comes down to data, right? One of the things that I will tell you was in a story, kind of we talked about earlier. Data has a gravity. One of the gentlemen looked up their washing machine, and the washing machine was sending about 30 gigabytes or 30, I think it was 30 gigabytes of data per week from their washing machine. Why would a washing machine need 30 gigabytes of data? It doesn't make any sense, right? But you have to have it make it sense, because you have to care about it that much to say, my washer and dryer should not be sending 30 gigs of information using my internet to some places where I'm not even sure where it's going, right? A lot of the cases you can find is that some of your devices in your house is sending signals overseas, right? Like, why is it going over there for? I bought it in Best Buy in US, right? So you have to demand psychological safety. You have to demand those changes to the way things are for your best you, right? Because their best you is the best buyer, right? The person that spends the most is the best you for them, right? But if you don't have a best you for yourself, well, let's just say it won't be the same conversation. We got to change that conversation a little bit. So before we jump off, let's kind of gather some thoughts here. Like, what do you guys think? What would you like to see next? And maybe we have to have the continuity of this conversation. And what do we learn next time? Go with you, Bobby.
Well, first off, I would like people to please comment and drop us a like if you're really enjoying what you're hearing. We're trying to make it technical, but yet easy to understand, right? We take technology and bring it down to a level that really integrates into people's lives, because the human factors are really what matter. Families are really what matter. So whereas some, shows talk about the technology in and of itself and we'll geek out. Okay, we're like, yeah, we see it. We understand it. we work in it, but we're people oriented. So that being the case, when you talk about children, educators, and what the new face looks like, there's going to be a divide between what sells and what the science says is best. So I'm just really excited about the new opportunities, but a little cautious about will we do what is best for the learner. And if you look at our track record in this country, we do what's best for the dollar. So how do we find the spaces in between? And how do we advocate for technology companies to deliver things that are ethical in nature and response and take responsibility for the things that they put out there, right? So part of it is them, part of it is us. And I think that we really need to close the gap between what is delivered and what is needed. So I'm excited about the future, and those are some of the new topics that we'll be talking about as we move forward. Masako?
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on Bobby Ray. It's not a you or a them. It is an us, and we have to be the solutions that we seek. If we are in the space, if we are a parent, or if we're all someone's child, Mommy, to be able to stand in the space to see what solutions that we can bring to our communities and then create that change. And so I believe that we're doing that in the field of tech, in the tech space, in the space of parenthood, having younger ones where we can be in the community and show parents that, you know what, this is something that you could be a part of. It's not far removed from who you are.
Well, excuse me.
Well, with that note, I know it's royal time. It's our bedtime and our, shut the eye time. So I think this was a great conversation. Really want to thank a lot to our guest for coming in, Tristar, and sharing her educational background to the conversation. Like Bobby said, we're techies, but we are people focused. And there's nobody that's more focused on people than the educators. And our e-learners deserves more, and they need better than what we're giving them. Let's get more people involved, right? So with that, good night, and until next time, take care, and aye, we're out.
Aye. Tristar said thank you for having her. Thanked us for having her here.
Thank you.